On this edition of Good Day DePaul, last spring's 10 encampment at DePaul, a look back and plans for moving forward.
The Democratic National Convention in Chicago, daily protests, and big energy for Kamala Harris.
And new and improved sports facilities at DePaul, I'm Morgan Kirsch.
And I'm Daniel Duff, and this is Good Day DePaul.
It lasted some 17 days last spring, pro-Palestinian students setting up a tent encampment on DePaul University's Lincoln Park Quad. The university eventually shut down the encampment, but as I found out, the impact of that encampment remains a powerful force at the university. On October 7th of last year, Hamas-led militants attacked southern Israel, killing about 1,200 people and taking more than 250 hostages. The attack led to a massive continuing Israeli attack on Gaza, with about 40,000 deaths so far, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. Last spring, beginning April 30th, a group of pro-Palestinian protesters called the DePaul University's Divestment Coalition began an encampment in the Lincoln Park Quad. They called for DePaul to acknowledge the deaths in Gaza as genocide, to publicize the university's investment portfolio, and divest from businesses they claim have ties with the Israeli military, among other demands. After several weeks of negotiations, DePaul declared an impasse in the talks. The university then called in the Chicago police, and the encampment was dismantled after 17 days. One Palestinian student said the encampment brought them solidarity and community.
It was nice to see people who actually care and want to, not only learn, but also give experience and just, we were just a family. And we still are. Even though the encampment is not there, we still are a huge family, a community, and I just love and appreciate everyone that was there.
David Bolgatz is a DePaul student and board member of Students Supporting Israel who attended a counter-protest during the encampment. He feels the pro-Palestinian students were threatening.
They called me horrible names. They made serious threats to my life. How do I go back to school with them? And how do I know that these beliefs, the things that they said, the opinions that they held, haven't gone away just because the encampment did?
Stephen Resnikov, the director of the Center for Jewish Law and Judaic Studies at DePaul, thinks the encampment targeted Jewish people who sympathize with Israel. He's concerned about possible future demonstrations on campus.
I don't think it was not. In no way was it educational. It just fomented more hatred and insecurity on behalf of those who were hated. So if the ongoing activities or the new activities that are scheduled are going to be anything like that, it's just more the same.
On August 8th, DePaul issued updated guidelines for demonstrations on campus. They require space reservations for demonstrations and prohibit actions that block access, create excessive noise, obstruct views, or involve violence or safety threats. Hannah Ayesh, a member of Students for Justice in Palestine, or SJP, sees the guidelines as a targeted attempt to keep students from speaking out.
But that's not going to stop us at all. I mean, even us being here today, we can possibly face consequences for that as SJP. But I think what we've come to the realization is that if we continue to allow their scare tactics to work, that no change is going to be possible.
Bolgatz wishes the guidelines explicitly mentioned protecting Jewish students.
All I was looking for was a commitment to keep Jewish students safe, and I didn't see that. I wanted to see the president go, anti-Semitism will not be tolerated, and he didn't say that. And to me, that says more. To me, that was loud.
On September 12th, DePaul's SJP held their first march on campus since the encampment was dismantled. Ayesh says the demonstration was a sign of the movement's continued strength and sense of community.
I think we formed such a really strong community that lasted even after the tents went away, that, we're able to have events like this and still have, a lot of people show up. Because I think the encampment made people realize that they're not alone on what they're believing. And I think it, motivated people to speak out even further now. And, that community is still much intact.
During the rally, one of the speakers was Dr. Ann DeQuino. She's a former DePaul adjunct faculty member whose contract was terminated last spring after she offered an optional assignment to explore the biological and health impacts the war in Gaza has on Palestinians. She now says her termination has been reversed.
With the help of United DePaul, a community of DePaul faculty, students, colleagues, and thousands of local and national community members, I successfully appealed my termination. An appeals board made up of professors at this university unanimously found that DePaul violated my academic freedom, and the provost accepted the appeal, finding my academic freedom was violated. However, since that appeal, DePaul has continued to exclude me from this university as a faculty member.
Good Day DePaul reached out to the university for reaction to DeQuino's claims, and a spokesperson only stated that the former adjunct faculty member is not currently employed by DePaul. Terrence Freeman, a former contracted security guard at DePaul who works for a private security company, also spoke at the march. Freeman claims he was reassigned to a different location in Chicago due to a public safety officer's concern with him taking photos with Palestinian students.
I took pictures with white kids, Chinese kids, black kids, Mexican people. I mean, it didn't matter to me. Again, they saw me the same way that I saw them. So at the end of the day, it's a situation where if you're gonna call me in to the office to have a meeting, essentially towards one, diverse group, I don't know how you cannot say that you're not singling them out.
DePaul responded to inquiries by saying that Freeman was working for an outside security company contracted with DePaul, and he is no longer assigned to our campus. Meanwhile, SJP's Hannah Ayesh feels voices like DeQuino's and Freeman's reinvigorate the movement.
Other faculty members and other students here who are risking their time and their future careers to even support us, I think that's a clear indication as to where we're going.
DePaul continues to respond. The safety of our students, faculty, and staff is a top priority at DePaul. Staff continue to work closely with our student groups to hear and respond to their concerns while ensuring DePaul remains a welcoming space for our diverse university community. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Morgan Kirsch.
Last spring at the University of Michigan, some pro-Palestinian students gained control of the student government. Now, that government is refusing to fund various campus groups unless the university divests from companies doing business with Israel. But the university says it will not go along with those divestment demands.
On September 1st, DePaul students began receiving health insurance through the university. That insurance is now required unless students already have their own insurance. The DePaul insurance is under the United Healthcare PPO plan. The cost for students is $800 per quarter.
The Democratic National Convention. It came to Chicago last month and brought incredible enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. But it also brought protests every day at the convention. I was at many of those protests.
The people united will never be defeated.
Only some out of thousands of voices pleading to be heard. Inside the United Center, an electric atmosphere and enormous enthusiasm for Kamala Harris.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
But on the opposite side of the arena's massive security perimeter, several thousand demonstrators took to the streets on each day of the convention in the name of a free Palestine and protesting the Israeli attacks in Gaza.
Free Palestine!
One of those demonstrators was Hannah Ayesh,
Intifada! Intifada!
DePaul Jr. and member of SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine, at DePaul.
You know, if you looked at the crowd, it was so diverse. It was not just Palestinians who were there. We had so many other organizations who are, present in the Chicagoland area who were there. And I think that solidarity and seeing it like physically there in person was amazing to see.
Demonstrations, rallies, and marches in the West Loop area came in many different shapes and sizes. Likely the largest of these protests drew about 11,000 participants and was put together by a coalition of over 270 national and local organizations. DePaul alum Jared Menegat was at that protest. He was involved with the anti-war committee during the DNC and helped fundraise for the coalition.
We're seeing so many different demographics, and it's not just the people showing up to the march, it's the movements that are showing up to the march. Beyond just like the existence of the demographics there, it showed what solidarity looks like. And I think people are recognizing that Palestine is the principal contradiction right now.
Many attendees could not help but notice the eerie similarities between the current tense political environment and that of 1968.
In the heart of downtown Chicago, there is an odor of tear gas still left in the air here.
An ongoing war unpopular with young people, an incumbent president suddenly dropping out of the race, a Democratic convention in Chicago, and a looming election only months away. But for Professor Chris Bury, the journalist in residence at DePaul, that's pretty much where the similarities end.
The better parallel, I think, is 1996 for Bill Clinton's renomination here in Chicago at the United Center, because 68, as we know, was a terribly violent convention with thousands of arrests, people getting injured and killed, police basically engaging in a riot against the protesters. So there's really no comparison to 68.
And when comparing police and city responses to the protests, Bury says this year's was overwhelmingly peaceful.
I think the DNC was a success, both for the party, which had a successful nomination of Kamala Harris, and for the city of Chicago, which under a lot of pressure and global spotlight managed to keep the city safe for the delegates and safe for visitors and safe for protesters.
But some protesters felt that police and city responses were excessive. Things like permit refusals, sound restrictions, and what some felt were overreactions by the police during several of the demonstrations.
This was a march that we worked really hard to establish was going to be family friendly, and it was family friendly. And to see how many officers with batons, with guns, with gas masks come out just to prepare for them to come back to the park, it reminded me of 2020 when I saw some officers, hitting their clubs on their hands, ready to bash people's heads in. It just reminded me that getting our voices heard like this is something that takes a lot of work.
Following the convention, Ayesh and other SJP members felt it was important to keep protesting the war in Gaza, to continue to pressure for divestment and ensure the safety of Palestinian-American students at DePaul. They feel the recent protest at the university achieved these goals and that their efforts would continue.
I don't think DePaul realized that last year, a lot of us were actually underclassmen. I think DePaul kind of expected most of us to be seniors who were graduating, and that after the encampment ended that it would have gone. But I was only a sophomore last year. I'm still going to be here next year as well, so that they're not getting rid of me that easily.
It should tear at your fiber, every fiber of your being, to ignore a genocide. It's pretty much if you have any inclination to care about your own humanity and care about the humanity of others, it's important to continue in the struggle and to learn with other people.
I think, many DePaul students are passionate on this issue. They want to see a change in U.S. policy, and they've got every right to push for that on campus and outside of campus.
If anything, this is just the beginning.
Ayesh compares SJP's struggle with DePaul administration to her own family's generations-long struggle in the West Bank. The way she sees it, as long as her family is forced to speak up and speak out for their freedom, she will continue to do the same.
A lot of our families have been fighting this occupation for over 75 years. My great-grandfather survived the Nakba. My grandfather survived the first Intifada, and my uncle survived the second Intifada. And I have family right now who are still surviving this current genocide right now. If our families have been fighting this apartheid system for over 75 years, what makes DePaul think that, you know, we as students are gonna just stop because they told us to?
With little movement on a ceasefire deal and a monumental election just around the corner, the calls will continue for a free Palestine and an end to the war in Gaza. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Daniel Duff.
Next on Good Day DePaul, FAFSA. The problems continue.
And in sports, major improvements to DePaul athletic facilities, those stories and more when we return.
Matchsticks, matchbox, matching tie and matching socks. You don't know why, but you're really special to match point, match game. You and I are not the same, but I can tell that you're really special to me. There is something I can give to make you laugh, to help you live. We're the perfect match, and you're really special to me. We're the perfect match, and you're really special to me.
It's called FAFSA, and it's been a continuing problem for those applying for student aid. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Last year, the federal government tried to simplify the FAFSA process, but in doing so, they created new problems that are still being felt by colleges and students. And those problems continue. Last month, the Federal Education Department said the FAFSA application form would be delayed for the second year in a row. Here at DePaul, officials say technology updates and other FAFSA delays continue. And for that reason, DePaul will not be able to make mass corrections to student FAFSA records for this academic year. That means financial aid officers will have to submit corrections for hundreds of students manually. And this could delay financial awards to some students. It will also mean delays in modifying students' awards that require corrections. And there could also be delays in determining if students with special circumstances are eligible for aid. Meanwhile, there is a bit of good news. DePaul officials say they've made some progress in the last 3 months. They began awarding financial aid to incoming freshmen around April 30th. They also sent out financial aid awards to all new law school graduates and undergraduates. And those law students began getting financial aid the week of June 28th. But in light of all the FAFSA issues, DePaul officials are advising students to complete the FAFSA forms as soon as possible.
DePaul Public Safety has detailed some of the security steps they've taken this year. These include more than $500,000 in lighting upgrades on the Lincoln Park campus. This involves lighting improvements to the Sheffield and Clinton garages, better lighting on the quad, and more lights along Belden Avenue. In addition, new security cameras have been added to the Lincoln Park campus, and 200 existing cameras have been upgraded to newer models. Public safety is also implementing a system that integrates nearby cameras with emergency call towers. They say this will allow dispatchers to see what's happening more quickly after a call tower is activated.
For the past 2 years, Good Day DePaul has reported on 2 historic buildings on State Street, across the street from DePaul's Loop campus. In 2022, the federal government decided to demolish the buildings, saying they posed a security risk to the nearby Dirksen Federal Building. They said they needed an empty space there to create a security buffer zone around the federal building. That decision has now been reversed, and the buildings will be preserved. They date back to 1913 and 1915. No decision has been made yet about how the buildings will be used in the future.
In 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a ruling that ended affirmative action in college admissions. We're now seeing some preliminary impacts from that ruling. At Amherst College, the number of new Black students is down 8% this year. At MIT, new Black enrollment is down 10%, and at Tufts, it dropped almost 3%. Other colleges have seen smaller drops in Black enrollment.
Now a brief look at sports. DePaul's Noel Malkamaki recently won the gold medal in the shot put at the Paralympic Games in Paris. Malkamaki broke her own record twice during the event. Malkamaki was born without a right hand.
Former DePaul basketball coach Tony Stubblefield has a new job. Stubblefield is now assistant coach with the University of Oregon basketball team, the same job he had before coming to DePaul. Stubblefield was fired before the end of the last season.
DePaul has completed a 9-month renovation of the Sullivan Athletic Center and McGrath Phillips Arena on the Lincoln Park campus. This includes a resurfaced playing court, new team-specific locker rooms, enhanced softball batting cages, a new video board, and a new state-of-the-art weight room.
In men's soccer, DePaul is off to a 2-3-1 record in non-conference play, and the DePaul women's soccer team has started the season with a 2-4-2 record. Meanwhile, an honor for women's soccer goalie Elena Milam. She was recently named Big East Goalkeeper of the Week. This after Milam recorded her 6th career shutout in DePaul's 1-0 win over UIC.
The DePaul volleyball team is off to a strong start with a 6-3 record, and some awards for the team. Earlier this month, Rachel Krasowski was named Big East Defensive Player of the Week, and Jill Presley was named Offensive Player of the Week.
And finally, DePaul cross-country runner Damian Rodriguez has been named Big East Male Athlete of the Week. Rodriguez recently took first place in the 4-mile Husky Invitational.
Coming up, DePaul loses a great friend and benefactor.
And convocation. It kicks off the new school year at DePaul. Stay with us.
The flu is unpredictable and can be serious. Who needs to be vaccinated against the flu? You. Get a flu vaccine. For more information, www.flu.gov.
DePaul has lost a great friend. Her name was Anne Laurie, and she died last June following an illness. With her husband, Robert, she created the Anne and Robert H. Laurie Children's Hospital of Chicago. She also donated money to many other important causes. Here at DePaul, our dance marathon, Demon-thon, donates its proceeds to the Children's Hospital. Anne Laurie was 79.
On August 29th at the Lincoln Park campus, DePaul held its annual convocation, the traditional beginning of the school year at the university. It began with a procession at the quad with faculty and staff dressed in academic regalia and marching to St. Vincent de Paul Church. Once there, university officials talked about the upcoming year and some faculty members were honored. Later in the day, a welcome back celebration was held on the quad.
That's all for this week's edition of Good Day DePaul. You can keep up with us by visiting our Vimeo channel at Good Day DePaul or by going to goodday.depaul.edu.
And be sure to check us out on Facebook.
And if you have any news tips, message us through the Good Day DePaul social media channels.
Thanks for watching. I'm Daniel Duff.
And I'm Morgan Kirsch. Have a good day, DePaul.